Well, hi there. Welcome to Markets Tomorrow right here on ET9, the Mumbai News Center. I'm Tanveer Gill, and it's really about the big rally the markets witnessed in the last hour that pretty much dominated the session. So we'll talk about that more over the course of the next half an hour with our special guests. But 7650 was crossed in the session. We'll make sense of the markets and what it means for tomorrow's trading session with the Shankar Sharma of First Global, Anup Maheshwari, Head Equities and Corporate Strategy at DSP BlackRock, R. Sreesankar of Prabhudas Lilladher, and Mandar Jamsandekar will help our viewers with technical strategies to approach trade tomorrow. But really it was about the late hour rally that pretty much dominated the session yesterday. You had the index cruise past 7650, and that move really came in the last 60 minutes of trade. So from the time we hit 230, the market just picked up this momentum, and it was across the board. It was on the index, it was in the bank nifty, it was in terms of the market breadth, and also in the futures and options side of the market, you saw heavy build up in open interest. Autos, PSU banks, realty largely led the momentum. Put writers got active at 7500, 7600, which essentially suggests that there was base building happening at the 7500 mark. Again, like I said, suggesting that strong support built up at that level, which means that the market believes there's more upside to this rally at close. Bharti Airtel, drilling it down to specific leaders in the session, Bharti Airtel was up 4% on, the deal that they've struck with Aircel to purchase more spectrum for 4G rollout. Then there was, of course, Tata Steel, and that's been a big story all this evening, selling Scunthorpe plant to Grey Bulls, and that will have a bit of a sentimental impact on Tata Steel, which as a stock from the start of the year till now has gained 27%. And analysts believe that this offloading of their painful assets from the balance sheet, or liability, so to speak, would only enhance the profile of the stock in the eyes of investors. Fertilizer stocks were active in the session too, in terms of price and volume activity. The question that we are asking then is that will the Nifty's up move today suggest a breakout rally for the markets? Essentially talking about more upside from these levels, given that you're pretty much stepping into earnings season come next week. Sreesankar, we'll start off with you. Good evening. What's your own sense? Do you think that there's more to go, and we could be talking 8,000 soon with the kind of up move we saw, which took the market by surprise?
I don't think that it's going to be running up in a hurry. The fact remains that the global growth estimates have actually been revised downwards for every market, be it the US, be it UK, be it Europe for that matter, be it the emerging markets and the world growth. So what everybody is expecting is probably you will continue to see the loose monetary policy, which will continue in every markets, and that becomes in a sense it's going to be more of a currency game which will continue to happen. How much of and what the US is going to do. So you probably would have seen the US dollar strengthen against every other currency to that extent, and probably in some cases, in the last 24 months we have seen some of the currencies like Brazil, Russia, South Africa, etc., Turkey, etc., as going probably losing quite a lot of against the dollar. So you must have seen certain bounce back happening in these markets, but I don't think that there is structurally which is anything telling me that you probably are going to see a bull market which will continue to run up. So again, if you look at this market itself, probably the last we witnessed a smart rally from a low levels of 6950, etc., and in the Indian market, and it lost its momentum and it lost its the steam, and it was probably looking for an excuse to move, even sustain at those levels. It was finding it difficult to sustain at those levels before the sharp rally would have come up. My own thought why it happened after UK the European markets opened, you probably saw even some amount of short covering happening, and that those markets looking good. Expectation
so this was a short covering led rally to your mind. Okay, that's a fair point. To the top story of the day, people will be watching out for Tata Steel's earnings in the upcoming quarterly earnings season, that is. The stock is higher, closed higher about 3% at 330. But the story with Tata Steel is over the last 3 months from a year-to-date perspective, and we can stretch that timeline to a 52-week chart. So this year chart as well as the 52-week chart would reflect the kind of momentum the stock has been. Which means that that's a 34% move from 12 Jan. I mean, on adjustment, that would be about 27.5% if you take it from the start of this year's trade. But on balance, it's been a very solid return for Tata Steel shareholders, partly led by the rebound in commodities, but also partly led by the structural change where a chunk of a bad debt and a big liability in the UK operations, one part of which has been offloaded in the Scunthorpe plant being sold to Grey Bull. And that's, of course, a 52-week chart. So you can see from where Tata Steel has come off and what kind of journey it's made thus far. 380 was a 52-week high on that counter, and it's slowly nudging close to that level. 30 seconds before we hit the break. Sreesankar, things looking good for Tata Steel with this development?
Definitely, it's definitely better because your cash flows from the Indian operations probably getting offset by the losses on the other operations. If that bleeding stops, it's definitely good news for the company. No two questions about it.
Decent earnings, a decent outlook on earnings revival for FY17 plus good monsoon. What could then stop the markets from going higher from here?
See, there are a couple of factors which still looks at when we still looks at the FY17 earnings. Yes, the point is the global growth story intact? If the global growth story, if you continue to see headwinds coming into the global growth story, then our exports are going to have a tough time ahead, which effectively means that you're going to have at least from one point of view, the earnings growth story getting stunted. Then you are looking at the domestic growth. Domestic economy, the last 2 years we have had poor monsoon. Now, if you look at the commentary given by most FMCG companies in their analyst calls, they have been continuously being cautious about the slowing demand growth in the rural areas. And that's one of the big worrisome factors. So now, if it's going to be a good monsoon, you're going to see a good demand growth coming in the domestic side, aided by 7th Pay Commission, OROP implementation, and if it's going to be a good monsoon-led rural economic revival, then you've got a good domestic growth story in terms of consumption happening around. That's point number one. Second is, we may see certain recovery for the commodity space, thanks to the probably bottoming out of commodity side. But then, having said that, if one looks at the longer term estimates of Chinese growth, etc., it's not going to be that great. So you've got headwinds still there. So I don't think that one should be quite oblivious to the fact that the world is not growing at a faster pace, and things are looking better because we have got from a budget investments happening in infrastructure, road, rural areas, railways, etc., which should aid. But I don't want to just look the other way and say that everything around is rosy, which I don't think. So there is going to be an earnings growth. And our own estimate that earnings growth is going to be around 21%, and a lot of it is going to come from even 28% of the growth is coming from financials, banks which have got closer to 30% in the weight of their Nifty.
All right, let's see whether we actually see that mark on earnings growth, because so far the last 2 financial years have been pretty disappointing in terms of overall earnings momentum in the economy and across the board.